Welcome back. You're still watching Business Lunch. Now, as reported by CNBC TV18 earlier, Zee has found a white knight in Sony to form a merger. What are the deal contours and what does this mean for Invesco's attempt to reconstitute the Zee board for the shareholders? Nisha, I know you've been tracking the story closely. Take us through all of this.
Thank you so much, Pavitra, for that. Yes, Zee Entertainment board has given an in-principle approval to merge with Sony Pictures to create a media behemoth. Now, the terms of the non-binding agreement involve Puneet Goenka as the MD and CEO of merged entity. And first, to the contours, well, the Sony company to hold a controlling stake of 52.93% after an infusion, remember, of $1.6 billion in the company. And Zee shareholders will own around 47% stake. So the majority of the company and even the board of directors of the merged entity will be nominated by Sony Group. And exclusivity for the merger talks is for 90 days. Merger will have to be approved, remember, by the shareholders of Zee. But the single largest shareholder of Zee, Invesco, remember, has asked for a reconstitution of the board, removal of Puneet Goenka as a director, which in effect also removes him as the MD and CEO. So the Zee board will now still have to call for the EGM in 21 days of requisition and conduct that meeting within 40 days, unless, remember, Invesco has a change of heart post this particular announcement. Now, the catch here is that if the EGM for the board reconstitution really takes place at the behest of Invesco, the shareholders will focus also on the white knight proposal by Sony to merge with Zee and the $1.6 billion fund infusion that comes with it. So the narrative of the EGM is set to change. This is a mastercard for Zee to combat Invesco in its fight with its largest shareholder, and merger with Sony will now take a precedence over the corporate finance issues that may have been highlighted by Invesco. So the ball is in Invesco's court, but just one point on the timelines. While EGM can happen in 40 days, this particular exclusivity is for 90 days. Now, let's take this particular coverage forward. We have with us Vallabh Bhansali of Enam Securities joining us on the phone line. Vallabh, good to have you on CNBC TV18. This is Nisha from the studio. My first question to you, what do you make of this merger proposal between Sony and Zee for Zee becoming a very big media behemoth with this combination amidst an investor attack from Invesco?
Well, financial investors and strategic investors think differently.
Yes.
And someone who knows India so well, Sony has been here for decades, their perspective about the management, about the company is clearly very different. So both may be entitled to their own perspective and fears and aspirations. So that's how I see it, that someone who knows the challenge of India, the potential of India, who is succeeding, who is not succeeding, I think it's a fabulous merger.
Right. So, Vallabh Bhansali, one more question. This comes amidst a board reconstitution and removal of Puneet Goenka's demand coming in from Invesco, which has called for an EGM. And that EGM has to be slotted within 35 days from now, while the exclusivity carries on for 90 days. What do you think the shareholders will really think and in terms of taking a decision will give more precedence to when it comes to vote? Because even the merger agreement requires shareholders' approval.
So, from an investor's point of view, how has this merger been received is now out in the open. Of course, the deal has to be concluded. And if someone was in the game for financial gains, what is what sort of action can result in financial gain is also out in the open. And therefore, one thinks that if one were to act pragmatically, people will opt that, okay, let's explore this potential merger. That's what one would think. Every day is a new day. There was a day when Invesco thought that it was better that Puneet goes. And there may be a day when they might think that, okay, if someone else sees so much value in Puneet and we can benefit from it, why not take the ride? So I don't know how, what sort of stance they would take. Thinking pragmatically, this is what I think they would do.
And also, final question to you, Vallabh Bhansali, from my side. Well, you've been an ace deal maker. You have seen several corporate battles as well. What do you make of this white knight situation to combat a key single largest shareholder?
See, I think Sony has been kind of, people have been thinking of Sony from a merger point of view, and several people would have looked at it over the last 10, 15 years. So, and Sony Zee, because of the wonderful complementarity of their genres, etc., was always something that academics looked at. But maybe the shareholding pattern, the control, because Zee was a valuable company and that would not have yielded a control position to Sony, that might have prevented them. But at the current situation, Sony, I don't think has come as a white knight at all. I think it's a hard-nosed business deal. They've looked at all the aspects that what would optimize the value for them much more than for others. And that's how the contours have been drawn. So if you look at the threshold crossing of 52-odd%, clearly they are buying into the company by putting in that cash in the company, $1.5 billion. So I think it's just a great opportunity for them to buy into the company, and that's what they have done. This is a fantastic situation. We are not coming from out and paratrooping in and then, buying something. We have known everything. I mean, the due diligence has been on for decades in a way for each side. So I think it's a very commonsensical one.
All right. Hi, Vallabh. This is Pavitra. I also want to ask you, Sony will be holding a majority stake, but do you think, with Puneet Goenka still at the front, still running as CEO for the next 5 years, do you think this is a matter of concern, or do you think it's perhaps better that, there will be some continuity over here in terms of the management?
I think that's what has been desired. I think they think that a merger of this kind requires very adept handling. Media is not an easy business. We have seen some kind of consolidation in the past, and it doesn't always go the way one hopes for. So from the people point of view, staff from artist point of view, and there are many, fineness and niceties to it. So I think clearly they're seeing not only continuity, but they're also seeing capability in Puneet, because at the time that it has come, obviously one would have thought, doubly, that if one shareholder has said we don't want Puneet and we go ahead and say we want Puneet, it's not some political issue. It's a hard-nosed business decision. And so that's how I see it, and that's wonderful. And there's nothing wrong. I think both are not contradictory. Both are different. A financial investor can think differently.
Yes.
Strategic investor can think differently. Their interests can vary, and that's what we are seeing. So one should not read, there is no scandal or drama in it.
Yes.
I think it is very hard-nosed.
All right, Vallabh Bhansali, thanks so much for joining us with your deep insights on this. But one point to mention here is that ultimately, whatever is the decision will be put to vote to the varied shareholders. And remember, Zee Entertainment is a very widely held company. So therefore, the decision could be very democratic either ways. And that answers the corporate governance angle of this situation. With that, we'll slip into a short breather on Business Lunch. Come back for more news and updates.